Welcome to Physicists in the Wild. My name is Aggie Branczyk. In this series, we chat with physicists who pursued careers outside of academia. In today's episode, we chat with Juan Cayuso, who did his PhD in cosmology and is now working as a data scientist for an e-commerce company.
So I'm working in a company named Mercado Libre. It's an e-commerce and fintech platform in Latin America. And I'm working in the data science team as a data scientist. There's a very analytical, programming, coding heavy part, but there's also a very social, collaborative part with people that are not necessarily deep into data as I am.
What would you say are your least and most favorite parts of your job?
Okay, let's start with the highlights. As I had suspected before, going into industry, a non-academic job, did involve a big discovery and a big transformation in my skills and my way of thinking. So at least particularly for the kind of work that I've been doing, you find yourself in a little bit more of a more fast-paced scenarios, right? Some product has to come out. We need to understand it the better we can as soon as possible. It actually helped me discover new ways of thinking. I also think that I really liked how much my ability to communicate with different profiles of people has improved. It's different explaining something to a colleague in academia or a grad student than someone who is far more away from the subject. Mm-hmm. It's been a huge opportunity for learning a little bit more about storytelling and how to communicate things in a clear, simple way. I love that. It's been conducive to me to have a little bit more of a better balance in life. I know when I start working, I know when it ends. It's undeniable that sometimes I find myself thinking about work afterwards, as I did during the PhD. But I think that there's a structure that helps me keep that a little bit more at bay. I also like that I feel that I was getting paid well, Academic jobs are not necessarily the ones that, pay a lot of money. I don't think it's necessarily connected to the value that you bring. There's a lot of social reasons why one job pays more than the other, but it just felt a little bit better that, I'm working very, very hard into this and trying to make such a, good work with high standards, being careful, giving a good, deliver a good product or result. And on top of that, getting paid well. So that was great. So, yeah. So, and everything has a flip side. I don't think that nothing is purely good and anything is purely bad. So what is the flip side? The flip side is sometimes, coming from an academic background, sometimes it clashed with me that, people want to get something out as soon as possible. And you're like, wait, we have to do this carefully. And sometimes the weight of the business is larger than, the need of doing something up to the 100% or 90% or 80%. In some cases, I think it's justified and it was an opportunity for me to learn. And in other occasions, I do think that it would be good to slow down the marketing teams and product teams and say, hey, you need to do this right. At certain points, maybe the specific things you have to do may not be as exciting as thinking about the universe. And sometimes thinking about what people are buying and selling is not the most glamorous thing. Whenever I have those sort of moments in which I'm like, oh, I wish I would be trying to see something more exciting, I try to put it back, challenge myself and say, so do you think that this is simple? Huh? Mm-hmm. It's actually not. The world is a very complicated place and it's very complex. And understanding complexity, I think, is a huge thing. I can keep myself humble in that way. Mm-hmm. I can still see a lot of opportunity and a lot of intellectual excitement in what I do.
Can you say a little more about your experience as a PhD student?
I'm going to start again with the things I really like. One of the things that I really appreciate of the whole experience was how much I could learn from a bunch of very smart people. It's amazing. You're suddenly surrounded with people that really like to do deep thinking, and they have very different point of view. You see them arguing with each other, you see them joining forces. Another thing that I felt really good about the PhD is that I was very happy with the work that I was doing, the topic. I felt that I had made a good choice of where I wanted to contribute to physics. I worked on cosmology and very data-oriented stuff. I discovered another sort of passion and love in thinking about actual data and how to work with it is super exciting. In those terms, I'm very happy about how I grew and the things that I discovered during the PhD. If I start thinking a little bit about more of the challenges, one of the big challenges that I faced was related to how the motivation for doing the work changed from the beginning to the middle and sort of to the end. At the beginning, I feel that, I was getting into the PhD to very excited about the idea of contributing to physics, to push it ahead. And that was the main motivation, what I would learn about the universe, what I would soak from this environment. But slowly, it started turning into a little bit more of a fearful motivation related to like, but if I don't do some very remarkable or amazing job, I don't think people are gonna like listen to me, or they're not just gonna not like notice me, or want to work with me or give opportunities. I didn't feel alone in that feeling. I think it's something that I've seen in a lot of other people. Instead of doing the work every day because it's a big passion, the motivation starts being some sort of future objective or some sort of validation from the academic community, which is good to have, but I didn't like having that as my main motivation. Then you start questioning and you start doubting yourself, and that initial sort of very pure, more childlike motivation that started putting itself in a little bit in the background. I think that was one of the most challenging things, and thinking, a little bit about what's gonna come after the PhD. You start hearing stories about like other people who have like had some struggle finding, a permanent position, and then you're going from one place to the other. So yeah, the picture kind of like started changing a lot, and processing that. I think that it took a lot of mental energy, so it wouldn't, be hurtful.
How and when did you decide to leave academia?
As I was approaching the writing of my thesis and I had to start thinking about applying for postdocs, then I started wondering, well, do you want to stay in the, in the academic world? I had only glimpses, I guess, from what I would see from the faculty and from postdocs. It's not an impossible thing to try to, aim for an academic career. It comes at a big chunk of sacrifices, given it like time or moving places. And that might be a sacrifice that someone wants to make. And it's a completely honorable sacrifice. And I know a lot of people that do it and they're very happy about it. But then I had to ask myself, would I be happy about it? And I think I wasn't. I think I just didn't see myself doing that. I was also very lucky to start seeing some examples in my own life of people who had gone out of academia and having a blast. They seem to be like having a great time working on, good problems, and also transforming in a very interesting way. I think that was I saw again in the idea of going outside of academia the possibility of like, hey, how you felt when you started your PhD, how much you felt you were growing and discovering things. It seems that they are going through something similar but in a different way, and that seemed more exciting. I think that was okay, how about, how about I start a new episode in my life? What new things I could learn? I felt that I was very satisfied, inside with what I've done in physics. I felt like I've learned things that, if I think about humans of all history, I've learned crazy things about the universe that most people in history might have not been able because they didn't exist. Like, we didn't know about those stuff. So it was also like a point of saying humbly to myself, well, maybe you just satisfy that part. What
Mm.
about you start exploring other things?
Mm.
And yeah, by the time that I submitted my thesis, I was just absolutely sure that I was going to look for something else outside, but I was still not sure what.
What was the journey from having made this decision to your current position?
The first thing I did is like, okay, what have other people done? Well, like in the same position that I've been, what have they done? I had friends again that were in industry. So first thing I did was talking to them, saying, hey, I'm thinking of like not continuing like a career in academia. I think that I want to try something outside, and you've done it. How did you start getting even an idea of what other options are there? And it almost feels like a little bit of a chain, because they had also the opportunity to talk to someone else. The chain of people helping each other kind of like get a better perspective was very useful. And I think it's a very good step for anyone who wants to imagine themselves doing something else. Just look for someone who has done it and ask them, how was it? Did you do some sort of program? Some people get into programs that, boot camps kind of things. Some other people know someone from their past that was working in some industry. That was my case. And also try to make a quick assessment of what are your resources. A training in physics gives you plenty of tools, analysis tools, for example, mathematics, in some cases, programming, which is a very useful tool to have, teaching and communicating, making a list of which of those skills you have and which are the ones that you actually like to execute.
Is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yes, I think I would have talked to way more people. I was lucky enough that just with a little bit of networking, I could find a new exciting opportunity. But it would have been very rich for me to not stop there, but to keep doing it.
Any final words?
I felt like a common thing that existed amongst peers and even in myself. It was a little bit of a feel of hopelessness. It seemed that getting a job in something that you like doing research in physics, was going to be very difficult. It was going to be like a treacherous path. It can be quite demoralizing. One of the things that I'm very happy about this year and a half is that renewed sense of hope and excitement for the future. Ultimately, the thing that I love is to think about problems and figuring it out. I thought that I could have lost that transitioning from academia to industry, and it was very good to realize that that was not the case.
Well, thank you, Juan, for this very inspirational conversation. It was great to see you again, and I'm super excited to watch you grow your career.
Thank you. It was really, really great to see you again. And thank you for inviting me. For whoever is watching this podcast, just reach out. If you are wanting to start your network, you just know one guy that you can just call and talk, and I will be happy to sit down and be helpful.